Welcome back. In the last video, Sarah and I raced to restore a Project Sea Ray before my dad passed. I just want to say thank you. The response and the comments were amazing. It's been a pretty difficult time in my life and it meant a lot. In this video, we're going to be restoring another one of my dad's project boats. This is a 1979 Sea Ray SRV 197. When we got this thing, I wasn't even sure we could save it. At one point in its life, it was basically a raccoon birthing center. Here's some pictures that my dad took. Okay, so now you can see where this boat was. We weren't even sure if it was going to go to the scrapyard or if we could get it back on the water. But my dad actually did a lot of work on this thing when he first got it, and it kind of felt like we should try to bring it home and get it back on the water. I think the coolest thing about this story is that halfway through restoring it, I woke up to find a note on my car, and this is from the grandson of the original owner of this boat, who grew up water skiing behind this thing, wanting to get back into boating and getting this boat back in his life. So let's do it. All right, we just backed it in the driveway. Time to see what we got with Project Mellow Yellow. And as always, we're cracking a cold one because we're starting something new. We have not looked at this boat really at all, other than I did notice we have this little guy here.
I want to keep it.
And then we have a small forest, like an herb garden, I think, under here. This thing is rough. I don't know if we're gonna be able to save it yet. Because the engine was exposed over winter, and depending on how much snow we got and how it melted, if the water went into the flame arrestor, then that means water got into the engine.
When did the tarp situation that was part of this contraption fail?
I think before we check the engine, we're going to rip down this A-frame scenario and then blow it out with a leaf blower. You ready?
As always.
By the way, that is the coolest shirt I've ever seen.
Thank you, Dad.
Let's see what we see here. The floor feels good. I don't feel any soft spots.
Just shaking water.
I don't know if this boat's salvageable yet, so the first thing we're going to do is check the engine. Actually, the oil looks really clean and it's at the right level, but I still don't know if water got into the cylinders yet. All right, Sarah, I checked the oil, so we're gonna turn the key and see what happens. Uh-oh. So the engine wouldn't start, but it was turning a little bit and stopping, which to me means that it's hydrolocked, so this could still be junk. I just went in here and started pulling the spark plugs, and it was all good until we got to cylinder number 7, and when I pulled that out, a ton of water came out. So, what does that mean? That means that water definitely got into this motor, which is not good. Now we can get to this side. We're going to pull all the plugs here too. A lot of rust in that one too. Basically, the back 2 cylinders filled with water. Hail Mary for saving this thing. We have a flexible funnel shoved into cylinder number 8. We got some ATF, and we are just going to down the hatch. All right, we're gonna try this too on cylinder number 7. All right, boys, this is the next day. It's been raining all morning. Back 2 cylinders have been soaking in ATF all night. So we're gonna see if this project is destined for the scrap heap or if we can save it right now. Hey, it's not seized. We might have no compression in the back 2 cylinders, but I'm gonna spin it and keep kicking water out of it. We're gonna throw it back together and see if it fires. All right, boys, I heard signs of life, which is good. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take a compression tester. We're gonna throw it in each spark plug hole and we're gonna crank it over and see what numbers we get. If they're all even, game on. It's just fuel delivery, spark, and it should run. So let's see what we get. So we didn't get great news, but we didn't get terminal news either. The cylinders are ranging from 75 to 125. Now, obviously, you want them to be within 10%, and 75 is way too low to run properly. I think what we're gonna do, we're gonna soak all the rings in ATF. I'm gonna pull plugs and just swamp this thing with ATF in hopes of loosening them up. And then while that's happening, this thing needs a bath so bad. All right, it's clean. Let's take a look at it.
Clean-ish, I'm sure. Actually, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised at how much it cleaned up. One thing that's kind of crazy though about this boat is that since it was covered for like its whole life, like under a thing, like the foam is like, sit in this once.
Oh, actually, yeah.
Really nice.
Yeah.
I think the interior in this thing's pretty neat. What I think is really cool.
Nicer steering wheel than a lot of cars.
Yeah, it's like a muscle car.
It can definitely not clean yet.
It's got this like inlaid thing that says SR for Sea Ray. It's kind of cool.
Oh.
These are your trim tabs. So you got trim tabs on this boat, which work.
You left that one plant.
I did. You know what? This is my plan. We have this plant here.
You're gonna build a little vase around it.
No,
A little planter.
I'm not removing that plant unless I can get this engine running, because where one life ends, another begins, you know?
Oh,
So if
it's gonna be the sacrificial.
we're scrapping it, it's staying on it. All right, now that this thing's clean, we need to keep it clean, and that brings us to our sponsor for this program. This is a cover donated by Empire Covers. They produce pretty awesome boat covers, and some of them are made here in America.
Yeah!
And we're gonna see if this fits. I said that it was a 79 Sea Ray. I gave them the model number, and they said this is the cover for it, so we will see. All right, so it's been a few days. This thing's definitely been thoroughly soaked in ATF. We're just going to dump some gas down its gullet and see what happens. Oh man, it wants to. I don't know. It sounds like it runs despite the horrible compression numbers we were getting in cylinders number 5 and 6, but I guess let's keep running it and maybe we'll check the compression test again after we run it a minute. We got power. Hell yeah, she is running okay. Drop forward. Got reverse. Trim gauge doesn't work, no way. I can't believe it's running this well, given that the compression was so bad. I think maybe the rings were stuck. Maybe there was some rust on one of the valves, but check this out. I don't know, man. I think we can rip that plant out of there. Why don't you go do it while it's running?
No, I like it.
That was the deal. The boat's gonna live, so the plant must die. So now that we know this thing works, we're just going to pull a bunch of stuff off of it and spray them it black, because right now it looks like crap. All right, it's been a few days. What do you think?
It's pretty good.
I mean, that cleaned up really nice. Just fresh coat of paint, adjusted some stuff, so that should be ready to go. Now we need to get the wood looking pretty, like you. All right, so the carpet's coming down on a lot of the interiors, so we're just going to be using an indoor-outdoor carpet adhesive with a serrated trowel thing. Hoover it on there, slap it up there, should be good. So let's time-lapse it. One thing I wanted to touch on was for these Mercruiser 350 small blocks, there's been a lot of discussions on Facebook about oil, and some people think you need marine oil. You do not need to spend the extra money on marine oil. This is a big, dumb, cast iron engine designed in the 50s that has been produced forever with big sloppy tolerances. So what you are going to want to do is use some oil that's got zinc. This is pretty cheap. I'm using Rotella T4 15W40. This stuff has more anti-wear additives than a lot of other oils. And then just to boost that, we're going to throw a little bit of ZDDP in here. That's another zinc additive that will help because this is a flat tappet cam. The other thing that I'm going to be adding is this. I've had really good luck with this stuff for improving compression. And as we found out a couple days ago, 2 of these cylinders were way down on compression before I ran this thing. So yeah, we're going to throw both of these in there, and then we're going to run it after we change the impeller. And then I will check the compression again in a little bit, but I have a feeling it's going to be a lot higher than 60. The other thing we're going to do for safety is replace this blower hose. I have the old one on the ground right there. It just sort of disintegrated. You're supposed to have a blower on any boat that has an enclosed engine compartment, because if there's a spark and there's a bunch of gas fumes in here, it could just explode. And now we're going to do the water pump impeller and the lower unit gear oil. Ready?
Wait.
Oh.
Is it in forward?
Right. You always start with the shifter in forward.
Okay, after making sure that it's in forward, first thing you want to do is drain it out by removing this little screw here. That's a little gooey looking.
I don't see a lot of milky color, so that means there's not water in there. It's just all gear oil. So the seals are probably still good. All right, let's take the top one out too, the vent. Now it's really going, see?
There we go.
So to drop the lower unit, there's going to be about 6 fasteners. One of them is going to be an Allen in here if you have an anode. We don't have one, so we can ignore that one. There's 2 here, there's 1 on the side, and then there's 1 up in front. This one, you cannot get the nut all the way off without dropping it a little bit. So Sarah's loosening that side, and then I'm going to try to get these out.
So funny, actually, we were wrong. There is still an Allen under there. You probably can't even see that, huh? Wasn't ready for that. Nice catch. Thank you for not dropping that on me or into the oil and splattering me. Okay, and for reasons passing understanding, these three are not the same size. You have 7/16 here and here, and then half here, but you know, whatever. Okay, so now there's a little prize spot right over here. There we go. The twist always works.
And it is a good thing we changed the impeller because you can see that all the veins are starting to crack. Probably really ancient.
There are going to be chunks of that coming out of this pretty soon. Yeah. This key here is really important for lining everything up later. So we're just going to move it so that it doesn't fall down in there. I'm traumatized, in case you can't tell. Yeah, the kits come with a bunch of different gaskets for various models, and you have to make sure that you grab the right one.
The other thing I like to do is put some silicone lubricant on these veins. It'll just help it not run dry when we first run it. And it will help it twist when we put the shaft in the hole. You can see the way this is rotated. What we're going to do is as we drop this on here, we're going to twist the drive shaft. But somehow we are not in forward anymore because the prop isn't moving, so that's annoying. The other thing I'm going to do is put some grease where it contacts the metal up here. Sarah, do you want to do this part?
Good, you're doing a great job. Clearly practiced at this.
Okay.
All you have to do really is turn this a little bit clockwise to get back in gear. Look at that, we're good to go.
All right, we always like to double check when we finish. Put it in neutral. Oh yeah. Put it in forward. Put it in reverse. All right, last thing you gotta do, you gotta get some gear oil, throw it in the bottom, and you just pump that thing until it starts dribbling out of this hole right here. I am gonna lower the drive too, just so it's nice and level. All right, the swim platform's done. I want to put that on today, but before I do that, I want to buff this thing because it's looking a little chalky. This thing was not out in the sun, so there's not really any crazy oxidation, but I want to get it nice and shiny. I've done a more in-depth video on gel coat restoration. If you want to see that, click up here. But for this video, we're just going to time lapse it, so let's do it. All right, we have the first guinea pig.
Oh boy.
How much do you weigh?
Cute. Ooh, it's like wibbly.
So the bilge in this thing was filthy. I want to get it clean before we take it out, so that way I know if it's leaking or not. And this is the trick I'm going to share with you guys. What I'm doing is just blasting the bilge like that. And then I go back here, and this is one of those drain clog removers. And I just do this. and you can see all the stuff that's come out of the bilge. So I tried to clean it as much as I could from the top, but a lot of it's just back behind and underneath the engine. It's definitely getting it all out. All right, now we are going to grease the stern drive. So we got to hit here, 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 and the gimbal bearing, which is under there. So it took me about 20 minutes to get the van hooked up to this coupler because it's probably one of the worst designed couplers ever made, and the surge brakes don't work anyway. So we're going to be removing this and just installing a standard coupler. Now, if you have a vehicle with nice brakes, you won't have any problems, but remember, you are towing something. All right, so I'm getting ready to install the seat boxes, but I don't know if you guys can see this, but right back here, that's all raccoon like ancient raccoon like before my dad even started cleaning this out, it's still there. So today's the day we're gonna splash this thing. Before we do, I do need to put the name of the boat on there, so we're gonna go ahead and do that quick. DJ! Ready to get this thing wet, Sarah? So stoked.
Here goes nothing. It's always a little nerve-wracking the first time out.
So be gentle with your first time.
Oh god. Water. Floating.
Yeah! Alright, let's see what happens.
Reverse. It's always
Working.
Forward. So far, so good. We're ticking all the boxes. How's the oil pressure?
Not zero, so good.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Look at this! This was a garbage boat a few weeks ago. Here we are on the water, and
Under our own power and everything. Oh, and he killed it.
well, I don't know how many boats this is, but cheers for the first ride.
Drinking one of Bill's old beers too. How's it taste?
No. No. Alright, it's the next day. Had a lot of fun with this thing yesterday. It was doing some weird things, which I think were related to fuel delivery. It would cut out at wide open throttle sometimes, and it just didn't seem like the fuel supply was steady enough. So we are going to change the fuel water separator right here. And I'm also going to throw in some new spark plugs. Before I put in the new ones, we're going to do a quick compression test and see what happened to cylinders number 5 and 7. All right, we got the compression tester into the cylinder that had like 60 PSI. Let's crank it over and see what happens. Damn, almost 150. All right, I would say this side is cured. Let's go check the other side quick. Hell yeah, 150 PSI. Let's go. We're gonna throw new plugs in this and then see what it does. So we're still having fuel problems with the boat. I ordered a carb rebuild kit, but right now that means I'm waiting on parts, so we're gonna turn our attention towards this. Yep, got to the end of that and realized I wasn't wearing a mask, which was stupid. But anyway, at this point, I'm going to be using a hammered paint, just because this isn't like totally a restoration. This is cleaning it up and trying to make it look not so freaking embarrassing, boys. So the nice thing about the hammered paint, this is pretty durable and it hides a lot of surface imperfections, so I think this is going to turn out pretty nice. Let's spray it. Yo, it's the next day. All right, check it out. This is how it turned out. It is far from perfect, but perfect from far. Boat trailer taillights. Now, I don't even use these incandescents anymore because even if they do work, they're usually really dim. And when you factor in the price of today's LED taillight replacements, it's just a no-brainer and they light up way easier. You have way less problems with all the different wiring connections because it doesn't take much power to light these puppies up. So these are the cheapest ones I could find on Amazon. They were under $15 for a pair of them, which is half the price of Harbor Freight. So we're gonna see how they do.
Okay, moment of truth. Let's see it. Woo! We got running lights too. Blinker. Blinker.
Victory is mine!
Look at you.
Boom, this trailer just needs tires. And then we're ready to go.
And hey, look what we have up here. Tires. Oh no, where are they? Well, nicely refinished wheels. The tires must be in the garage.
All right, I think I found the issues with this boat. Here is the fuel pump, and then off to the side here, you're gonna see a sight glass, and it says, if fuel appears in here, fuel pump is broken. Well, fuel is appearing in there, so we're going to need to swap out this fuel pump. All right, we're gonna talk about fuel pumps for a second. This is the original fuel pump. These are no longer allowed for new boats to be constructed with because they could get damaged and leak, and then you'd have gas in the bilge and there could be a fire hazard. So the way the new ones are is they just have a nipple and you put a hose and you run the hose up to the top of the carb. So if there's any leakage from this diaphragm, the fumes will go up here and get ingested into the engine. Before we reinstall this new one, we're gonna put a dab of grease right on here. I'm using the Grease brand grease. This is probably from Fino, but a long time ago. But it should be fine. We just need to put something on here where that wear point is. Then we're gonna reinstall, run the tube up to the carb, and we should be good to go.
about it. Yeah, it's a little stumbly. That's weird.
RPMs are still bouncing.
Do we need to do plugs?
New fuel filter, new fuel water separator, new plugs, new carburetor, new fuel pump. So, all the things. We got it running yesterday, but it didn't stay running, and it just sounded like it was a fuel issue. So what I'm going to do now is I've disconnected the feed line from the carb. We're just going to throw it in here, crank it over, and check that fuel flow. There was like initial burst of fuel, and then nothing. Alright, what I've done now is I've just run it into a temporary tank. This will allow me to make sure that the fuel pump is suctioning correctly. Oh, whoops, I just shot fuel on top of the engine. Awesome. Yeah, that's working, which means that something is up with the tank. Either there's some sediment buildup or the vent is clogged, but we're gonna have to remedy that. All right, new carb installed. I have not adjusted anything. We're just gonna see how it performs out of the box. Pulled the coil from the other boat and thrown it in there because this coil that was on this one didn't test well. So, I don't know what's going on. We're throwing parts at it and hoping for the best. You want to run. I know you do. All right, Sarah, crank it once. I'm going to show you how to replace your points system with a Pertronix electronic ignition system. This is a Mercruiser 898, but it should be about the same for any of these old Mercruisers. The first thing we're going to want to do is take off the distributor cap, and you're going to want to leave all the wires on it. You want to take off the negative and the positive on your coil. Just take pictures before you do that so you have a reference image of which wires go where. The next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to loosen this whole plate. Jumping ahead a little bit. Now that everything's out, we can install the Pertronix system. Now, we are going to install the magnet sleeve. You can see it should line up with this, so you just twist it until it goes downward. That is pretty much done. Now all we have to do is wire this thing and see if it works. Then we're gonna have to retime the engine as well, but that should be the last time you gotta retime it. Now the moment of truth. Boom! Yeah, knew it was ignition. All right, now that she's running, we're gonna time the engine quick. I've already loosened the distributor, so it looks like I'm pretty far off. I need to get it to 8 to 10, and right now we're probably at like 16. We got the timing set. Now we just need to tighten the distributor down and take this thing for a test trip. We are on the second maiden voyage, and by that I mean since we replaced those stupid points with an electronic ignition. She starts up perfect, sounds great, and we're gonna take it over to this other lake and do some top speed runs. One thing that's funny about these 70s boats is, do you see that giant horn right there? Check this out. Woo-hoo! Alright boys, this boat has been a giant pain in the ass. It was pretty much done over a month ago, and I've just been having all these fuel problems with it. And it'll run fine for like 10 minutes, and then it'll just cut out at full plane. Again, I have a new carburetor, fuel filter, new fuel line, new anti-siphon valve, and I'm pretty sure it's fuel because I ran it off an external tank and it ran fine. So what we have been doing is trying to empty the tank that is in the boat. I think there is water in it. The factory fuel filler here does not have an O-ring, so if it ever rains, I think water can get into the tank fairly easily. What we're going to do is we have compressed air, and Sarah's going to pressurize the tank by shooting compressed air into the vent on the side of the boat, and then I'm going to be watching this tube here, and it should pump out everything that's in this tank into this tank. So that's what we're gonna do. We have,
My hand was getting sore, so I have tools now, like a good monkey.
yeah, her hand was getting sore, so she's gonna focus on blowing and not the hand stuff. We have fresh fuel, we have fuel stabilizer, ISO heat, we have fuel filter, fuel water separator, fuel line, new anti-siphon valve, and time for one last test drive to see if we can get this thing going.
Hi boys, I have been beating on this thing for almost a half hour straight. It's not missed a beat. So cleaning that gas tank out and changing the fuel water separator seems to have done the trick. I'm finally happy with how this thing is working because that fuel system just took me a while to figure out.
How you guys doing? I'm Bob. This is the boat my grandpa bought in 1979, and we used it all the way up until 2007, and then it kind of deteriorated a little bit, and it eventually ended up with Rob's dad. 8 years later, we're getting it back, all fixed up and looking brand new. So it's pretty exciting.
The pictures of this thing that are on my dad's hard drive, it's like full of raccoon.
Oh yeah. Well, all the wiring was eaten. So your dad redid all the wiring, like, because they had been in there for years. And so when we had to push it down here, you know, we pushed that place down here. It was just like, don't touch anything, just push it, just push it. No,
Hand in the keys, I guess.
and my kids are really excited. Like, my son is super excited. I was telling Rob, so my ex-wife, her neighbor was over looking at pictures, and he's like, that's the mellow yellow boat? That's the cool, like, everybody talks how cool it is, how cool that emblem is. Such a cool name.
Glad you like it. I was like, well, if you don't like it, you can just peel it off.
Well, and my son Kyle was like, he's been on your YouTube since we've made contact, and he's like, he's going to go, Dad, he named it Mellow Yellow. He's like, that's pretty cool.
But anyway, congratulations,
All right, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for all your hard work.
Yeah.
You're a good man.
Thanks, Sarah, too.
Thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome.
This is a warning from the past. To make sure you're learning from mistakes that you did last. Send me a letter when you're done, evaluating what your short life has become. You should know. You should know.
Okay, last little voyage. We're taking the Mellow Yellow to the launch to help them load it on the trailer and get her back to her old family. You did good, Rob.
Saved another one. So, yeah, I feel pretty good about it, and feel even better that it's going back to the original owners. I mean, that's, how often does that happen? Pretty much never, right? So, I think my dad would be really, really happy with how this all turned out. And, yeah, it's a good little boat. There it goes. Have a good one. If you enjoyed this journey and you want to support more content like this where we're bringing things back from the dead and creating really cool stories, Sarah and I did start a Patreon. We're having a pretty good time with it, and the way I was thinking about it was, you know how there's like a website called Buy Me a Cup of Coffee? I set up the tier list more like buy me a gallon of gasoline. Now, if you're looking to collaborate instead, I want you guys to know that I have been an industrial designer for almost 20 years now. If you think of like an automotive stylist, someone who's drawn cars for like the big three, that job exists for pretty much anything that is mass produced, whether it's from boats to electronics to toasters to power tools, anything. If it's mass produced, at some point there is an industrial designer involved, or it's probably not very good. I feel like I have enough experience to make pretty much anything happen, and I'm looking for a new opportunity. So about the Sea Ray we restored, I don't think this was just another boat restoration to me. It was also a way to help finish something that my dad started. We kind of tag teamed this restoration, and it created some new connections, made some new memories. But end of the day, seeing this boat get back on the water and go back to its original family just really reminds me of why I do what I do, which is create meaningful things, whether it's meaningful design or meaningful stories. Product design, industrial design, brand strategy, I'm here to help. So check out this website.
Okay, so what are we doing next?
Honestly, I have no idea. We are so overwhelmed with half-done, broken things right now. It's too much.
Our to-do list makes me sweat a little bit.
And I know we just got a bunch of new viewers, so if you haven't been here before, we don't work on just boats.
We have many boats.
Yeah, we have big ones and little ones, and we have a lot of cars, lifted van content, school bus content, snowmobiles.
Weird.
Oh yeah, the Colorado off-grid property we're doing with do-it-yourself solar because we don't want to pay like $12,000 to a utility company.
No, thank you.
All right, so I don't know what we're going to be posting next, but thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.